Hello everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you all are doing great. And today we are going to start a new journey towards learning HTML, or I should say HTML5, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is used to build web pages and is a building block of a website or a web page. Whether you are completely new to web development or you already have some experience, this course will guide you step by step from the basics of HTML to advanced HTML5 features. So it will be a series of videos on HTML5 concepts all grouped in a playlist for better accessibility and for structured video by video learning. So first we will learn about what is HTML and what role does it play in a website. Every website you see on the internet like Google, YouTube or any blog website starts with HTML. HTML is not a programming language, instead it is a markup language. This means it uses tags to describe the structure and content of a web page. Think of HTML as the skeleton of a website. It tells the browser where to place headings, paragraphs, images, links, tables, forms, and more. Without HTML, there would be no web pages. As we move forward, we will explore document and its structure, then what is the source code and how to view the source code of a website. Then we will learn what are the HTML elements or tags and some examples along with them. Then we will talk about headings, paragraph, HTML formatting elements, HTML element attributes, the image tag, links which includes the anchor tag, HTML lists, table, etc. These topics are very important because they help create clean, structured and user-friendly web pages. And then we will dive deeper with HTML head, semantic elements, character entities, HTML forms which include label, input, select, etc. elements. Then the HTML media elements also. One important thing to remember is that HTML is the foundation of web development. If you understand HTML well, learning CSS, JavaScript, or any other framework becomes much easier. That's why this course focuses on building a strong foundation, not just memorizing tags. Throughout the course, we will use simple examples, real world scenarios, and hands on practice. You are encouraged to write code along with lessons and experiment on your own. Making mistakes is part of learning, so don't worry if something doesn't work at first. By the end of this course, you will be able to create well structured web pages from scratch, understand and use HTML5 features confidently, read and write HTML code used in real websites, prepare yourself for the next steps in web development. So, this will be an epic adventure of HTML. So, stay curious, tighten your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy learning how the web is built. We are going to be more productive than ever, and make sure you are subscribed to this channel for the HTML 2026 course and other similar content on the channel. Thank you and all the best. Hello everyone, welcome back to the 2026 HTML learning journey. In the previous video, we have discussed the roadmap of this HTML and HTML5 journey, and today we are going to start learning the basics of HTML. Starting with what is HTML, how does it work, and what is a HTML document. So let's start by asking a question that what is HTML? And the answer is HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the standard markup language for creating web pages that run in the browser. HTML actually describes the structure of a web page. Okay, so how does HTML do all of that? And the answer is HTML consists of a series of elements, and elements tell the browser how to display the content, such as hey HTML, this is a heading, and create an HTML heading such as h1, h2, etc. We will be exploring all of it, don't worry, and pass some content to it. Same goes for the paragraph also. We tell the HTML that this block of text is a paragraph. So go ahead and use HTML paragraph elements such as p tag or the pre tag based on the developer preference. Now that we have knowledge and understanding about HTML and what role does it play in creating or developing web pages, we can start learning about what a document is and what is its structure. So first of all, let's start by installing an code editor, which we will be going to create and edit our .html file. Feel free to choose any code editor you want. I will be going to use the Visual Studio Code because it is super simple to install and work on it. You can go to the Google website. So let's open Google here and type VS Code in it and open the first link that have a icon like this and title as Visual Studio Code. So let's open it and click on download for Windows. I have already installed it. You can pause the video here if you want to install it first and then follow along with me. So go ahead. Okay, now that we have installed the code editor, next thing is to open it. So let's open it here and you will be seeing a window like this. So let's close this and go to file and click on open folder and go to the directory where you want to create your HTML project directory. So I'm going to choose the desktop. So here we need to right click and click on new, then folder, and let's name it HTML tutorial, and let me add a space also. Okay, and click on select folder. So it will open the folder. Then we need to go to the file again and click on new file here. And let's name it index and with extension .html. You can name this file whatever you want. It doesn't matter, but the extension should be .html. So let's click on enter and we are inside the HTML tutorial directory. So let's create a file here. So the file has been created. So now that we have an .html file created, we can start building or coding our first web page. So let's start by typing doc type HTML at the top and start of our index.html file. Now, what does it mean by this doc type HTML? And the answer is the doc type HTML declaration simply defines to our browser that this document is an HTML5 document, and all HTML5 documents must start with this declaration. It must only appear once at the top of the page before any HTML tags or elements, and it is not case sensitive, meaning you can write this in all lowercase or uppercase, but the standard is that the doc type should be in capital and the HTML in the lowercase. Then below this, let's write HTML opening and closing tag also. This HTML element is the root element of an HTML page, which contains all the web page information. Then inside HTML element, we write our head element, which contains meta information about our HTML page such as web page title, description, favicon, etc. And also the CSS style element or the external CSS style file link. So let's give our web page a title. Currently, if we open our index.html file in the browser, it will display the file name as title, that is index.html, but we don't want that. And let's understand more about HTML document before opening our web page. So we can actually define our own web page title by going inside the head element and writing title, opening and closing element. And inside it we can write whatever we want to give our web page the title. So let's write HTML tutorial as our title. Next, let's create our body element with opening and closing tags also. The body element defines the document's body and is a container for all visible contents such as headings, paragraphs, images, hyperlinks, tables, lists, etc. Now inside body element, let's write our first heading element, which is h1 opening and closing tag. Inside it, we can write our heading contents such as let's write hello world. So hello world. And below this, let's also write our first paragraph opening and closing tag. So, and inside it, let's write Shubham compiled tag YouTube channel is amazing. Now that we have our HTML head, title, body, etc. tags defined, the next step is to actually run this index.html file in the browser and see the amazing result. So go to your directory where you have created this .html file. In my case it is on the desktop. So let's open our desktop here. And in the desktop I have a new folder created for me, HTML tutorial, which is created by the Visual Studio Code. So let's open it and double click on the index.html file to run our web page. So let's double click it. This will open your first .html file in your default web browser. So here we have hello world heading with h1 tag and a text of Shubham compiled tag YouTube channel is amazing as a paragraph tag, and we can close this safely because we don't need this. So this was our first .html web page that we have built together. We can also view the source code of our web page directly from the browser. So if we go to our web page that we have created, we can right click here and click on view page source, or we can directly access by the shortcut key Ctrl plus U. So let's click on view page source, and here we can see our HTML document printed. So first we have the doc type HTML declaration, then we have root element, that is HTML element, then we have a head and title which says HTML tutorial, then a body with heading and a paragraph. You can also view any website's source code by following the same steps and look at all the elements or tags it uses to display the web page in the browser correctly. So if we go to the google.com and view its source page, we can see that there is a lot of unstructured code that the Google has put in their page, maybe for performance optimization, but we can see elements such as HTML, doc type HTML, and head also. Then we can also view the source code of our Instagram profile. So if you ever wanted to see how your Instagram profile is built, you can look at its source code. So this is my Instagram profile, and if we right click on this page and click on view page source or the shortcut key Ctrl plus U, we can see that it follows the same structure, that a doc type declaration is here, then there is HTML tag, then a head element here and closing head element also, then the body tag, and it also contains some scripts which are used by Instagram to change the behavior of the web page, and there is much more. So now that you know about the HTML document and its structure, feel free to experiment with it and go to other websites and see their source code. This is it for this video. Next we will learn about HTML element. So if this video helped you in understanding HTML and HTML document, please give a like to the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. Also follow me on the Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Happy coding. Yo guys, welcome back to the 2026 HTML learning journey, and today we are going to talk about HTML elements or tags. Also, if you are feeling amazing while learning HTML, consider subscribing to the channel and giving a like on this video to support my work. And if you are just starting with this video, I would recommend you to go to the previous video where we talked about what is HTML and HTML document, also how to view the source code of any website. However, in this video I am going to continue our understanding of HTML and talk about what is an HTML element or tag. So let's ask a question, that what is an HTML element? And the answer is, an HTML element is a basic building block of a web page. It is defined by a start tag, some content, and an end tag. Or in simple words, the HTML element is everything from the start tag to the end tag, such as the heading tag, paragraph tag, etc. So these are some examples of HTML elements, such as div tag, which is a container element. Then we have the heading tag h1. This is the main heading element. Then we have h2 tag. This is a subheading element, and then a paragraph tag and the image. So let's look at example of each. So let's add a div tag to our web page. So let's simply write div, which is a container tag, and inside it let's add an h1 tag, the heading tag, and let's just say Shubham compiled tag. So this is our web page main heading tag. Then let's also add an h2 heading tag that just says this is a subheading tag. Then let's also add a paragraph tag here or element that just says this is a paragraph. And below this let's also add another div tag. We can have as many div tags as we want because this is only a container tag. Then inside it let's add an image tag here with an attribute of source. Don't worry, we will talk about HTML attributes in upcoming video. And I have a picture in my HTML tutorial directory called my picture that we can link to our source here. So let's add it here and let's just close this tag without the width and height attributes. And the image tag is also a self-closing tag which we'll talk about in a moment. So let's close this tag and save, and let's run our web page here and see the results here. So let's run it. So we have a main heading here with h1 tag that just says Shubham compile tag. Then we have a subheading tag that is the h2 tag which is defined here. Then we have a paragraph here written inside paragraph element, and then we have a beautiful image defined here with our image element or tag. So we talked about the heading tag just now, that is the h1 tag. Now let's talk about them more. The HTML headings are defined by starting with the H letter and then followed by a number from 1 to 6, meaning H1, H2, H3, H4, etc., where H1 being the most important heading and H6 defines the least important heading. Also, search engines use the headings to index the structure and content of your web pages. Users often skim a page by its heading, and it is important to use headings to show the document structure. The H1 heading element should be used for main headings, followed by a H2 heading, then the less important H3, and so on. For example, H1 should be used for page title, H2 for section titles, and H3 for subsections, and so on. The most important things to note here is that you should only use H1 tag per page. It represents the main topic or title of the web page, and the HTML headings should be used for headings only. Don't use headings to make text big or bold. We have another tags for that. Then comes the HTML paragraph element. The paragraph element simply defines a paragraph in the web page. A paragraph always starts on a new line and is usually a block of text. For example, let's add a few paragraphs in our HTML page. So let's delete all of that and let's add some paragraphs here saying this. Let's just say Shubham compiled text is amazing, and let's copy this few times. So and let's copy these here, and even though I'm copying and pasting the same paragraph on the same line, you will see that each paragraph is starting with a new line. And if I go down below, add some lines, new lines here, and paste a new paragraph here, you will see that there is only one line painted in the web page. So let's save it and look at our web page here. So let's refresh it here, and you will see that there are three paragraphs, each starting with a new line, even though we have pasted the second paragraph just after the ending of first paragraph and the third paragraph below in our index.html file like here, but the paragraph is started with a new line and there are no new lines between second and third paragraph. Also, the HTML elements can be nested, meaning elements can contain other HTML elements inside them. And to verify it, we have already been using nested HTML elements such as the h1 tag inside the body tag or the paragraph tag inside the body tag and also the title tag inside our head tag. One important thing about HTML elements is that you have to close every tag you have started, meaning you should never skip the end tag. And this is the error, or I should say bug, that beginners do a lot. Because the way HTML works that the user browser will often display them correctly even if you forget the end tag. But this can cause a lot of bugs when you start building something dynamic or complex projects. So never skip the end tag. However, we also have some empty HTML elements in HTML5, which is just called empty elements or tags. For example, we have the BR tag, and to show examples of them, let's actually format our code correctly here. Let's move it a little bit up and let's add a new line and let's paste it here. So the first empty HTML element or tag we have is called a BR tag, which is used to define line break in our web page and which is also self-closing. So let's save and open our index.html file in the web browser. So let's go to the page. We can see that we have three paragraphs here, each starting with a new line. But if we refresh our web page here, we can see that there is two line breaks between the first paragraph and the second paragraph. So this means that our empty HTML element, that is the BR tag, is working correctly. And we can add as many BR tags in our web page as we want. So let's copy this and paste it a few times. So let's paste it 4 times and let's just save and refresh our index.html web page. We can see that there is a lot of space, or I should say line breaks, between the first paragraph and the second paragraph, and there is only one new line between the second paragraph and third paragraph. Even though I can add as many space or lines as I want in my code here, but this does not work. We can see that there is no change between the second paragraph and the third paragraph because the way HTML is loaded in the web browsers only add a new line between two paragraphs by default. So if we want to add multiple line breaks in our pages between two paragraphs or any other tags, we can use the BR tag. So let's format the code correctly here and move it up little bit and save and refresh the page. Nothing is going to change. Then we also have another empty HTML element or tag called the HR tag, which is used to draw a horizontal line in the web page, which is also self-closing tag. And to see the example of it, let's add a HR tag between the second paragraph and the third paragraph. Actually, it is HR and it is also self-closing. So if I now save and refresh my web page in the web browser, we can see that there is a horizontal line drawn between the second paragraph and third paragraph. And also we can have as many HR tags as we want in our web page, like the BR tag. So let's copy it 2 times more. So if I now save and refresh the page, we should see that there are three horizontal lines drawn between the second paragraph and the third paragraph. So to summarize, what we have done in this video is that HTML elements are building blocks of web pages. They are created using HTML tags. Most elements have opening and closing tags. Some elements are self-closing and empty HTML elements such as the BR tag or the HR tag. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions, and also follow me on the Instagram. Link is in the description. In the next video, we will dive deeper into the HTML formatting elements. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Happy coding. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to practically learn about HTML text formatting. In the previous video we talked about HTML elements, headings, paragraphs and etc. So if you have not watched the previous video, I will recommend you to go watch the previous video first. It will give you more clarity about HTML. So let's start this video by exploring the HTML text formatting. HTML contains several elements for defining text with a special meaning, and formatting elements were designed to display special types of text such as B tag for bold text, strong tag for important text, and I tag for italic text, and etc. And let's start exploring these formatting elements one by one. So firstly we have B element and strong element. So let's see how they work in HTML. So firstly let's define a B element here, which just formats the content or text provided it into the bold text without any extra importance. So let's just say this is bold text, and below this let's also define a strong element which just formats the content or text provided it to bold text with extra importance. So let's just say this is a strong element. So if we now save and run our index.html file in the browser, we should see the B element and the strong element. Although the B element and the strong element look similar, but behind the scenes browser load them differently, and for screen reader users they work differently. Then we have an I element or tag which stands for italic tags, and EM element or tag which stands for emphasized text. So let's see an example of this also. So below this, let's add an I element here that just says this is italic text. The HTML element defines a part of text in alternate voice or mood, and the content inside is typically displayed in italic. Then we have the EM element which defines emphasized text, and the content inside it is also displayed in italic. Note that a screen reader will pronounce the words or content in EM element with an emphasis using verbal stress. So let's just say inside the EM tag I am emphasized text, and let's just save it and open it in the browser and let's see how it looks. So let's refresh the page. So here we have our I element or tag that just says this is italic text, and then followed by em element or tag that just says I am emphasized text. Visually they look the same, but behind the scenes they work differently, like I said earlier. Then comes the mark element, which is used to define text that should be marked or highlighted. So let's also see an example of it. So below EM element, let's define a mark element here, and let's just say this is mark or highlighted text. So let's just save it and open the index.html file in the browser and refresh the page, and here is our mark element that just highlights or marks the content with background color of yellow. Then we have the small element that just simply displays the text into smaller text. So let's also see an example of it. So below this, let's add a small element here, and let's just say this is small element content, and let's just save it and open it in the browser. So let's refresh the page here, and here we can barely see the small element content that just says this is a small element content. So if I zoom a little bit, maybe you can see the content that is here. So here is our small element text that just says this is small element content. You can see that the small element content is smaller than the emphasized or the P element content text. Next, we have the del element, which simply defines text that has been deleted from a document, and client browsers will usually strike a line through the deleted text. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code and let's add a del element here, and let's just say this is del element content. So if we now save and open our index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page, we can see that we have our del element content here, and the content has been striked, which means in HTML document that this content is deleted. Then we have the inserted element, which defines a text that has been inserted into a document, and client browsers will usually underline inserted text. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code and implement the inserted element here. So inserted, and let's just say this is inserted text in the document, and let's just save it and go to the browser here and refresh the page, and we can see that our inserted element content is here with the underline, which simply means in the HTML document that this is an inserted text. After this, we have the subscript element that defines subscript text. Subscript text appears half a character below the normal line and is sometimes rendered in a smaller font. Subscript text, for example, can be used for chemical formulas. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code. So let's write a BR element here to insert a new line break in our web page. And below this, let's write in capital H and followed by the subscript tag, that is sub, and then a closing tag also. And below this, and inside it, let's write 2, and after this let's write a capital O. And if we save our file here and open the index.html file in the web browser and let's refresh the page, we can see that we have H2O written correctly with H being capital and 2 below the normal line, and then followed by the capital O letter. So this was an example of subscript text. We also have an element called sub, which stands for superscript text. The sub element defines superscript text. Superscript text appears half a character above the normal line and is sometimes rendered in a smaller font. We can use the superscript text, for example, adding a footnote. So let's go to Visual Studio Code and also see an example of superscript. So let's also add a line break here by adding the PR element, then writing three capital W's, then followed by the superscript tag, which is sup sub, and let's write inside it 1. So if we now save and open the file in the browser, so let's see that. So let's refresh the page here and we can see that we have three capital W's here and one in the superscript text. After this, we have some more HTML text formatting elements such as the BR element, which inserts a line break inside the web page, and the HR element, which draws a horizontal line in the web page. We have already discussed these empty tags in the previous video, so you can check them out. And moving forward, we have the HTML pre element that simply defines pre-formatted text. The text inside a pre-element is displayed in a fixed width font and it preserves both spaces and line breaks. So in Visual Studio Code, let's add a PR element here first to insert a new line break, and below this let's add our pre element. And let's add some content here. So let's just add Shubham compiled tag is amazing, and let's just copy it few times. So copy paste, paste, and let's add a few more spaces here, and below this let's also add some content here, and let's below this add some more content here with spaces. Let's add some spaces and paste the content here. And with this unformatted content, what I'm trying to say, you will understand it in a moment. So let's just add some content here. So let's just save now, and let's open our index.html file in the web browser. And if we hit the refresh button, you can see that our pre-element content is displayed as we have typed in the Visual Studio Code. Now why it is like this? Like I said earlier, the HTML pre-element simply defines pre-formatted text. The text inside a pre-element is displayed in a fixed width font and it preserves both spaces and line breaks, unlike a paragraph element that just ignores the spaces and new lines inserted into it. And it is also a main difference between a paragraph element and a pre-element. Then next we have the block quote element that defines a section that is quoted from the another source. Also, browsers usually indent the block quote elements. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code and add a BR element here to insert a line break here, and then define a block quote element here that just says I am Shubham Singh, and let's just copy it a few times. So let's copy and paste here, and that's all. Let's open it in the web browser and refresh the page here. So if we refresh the page, we can see that we have some indent here and a text saying I'm Shubham Singh, etc. Now we also have an attribute of block quote element called site, which is used to define the link to the source of block quote content. For example, let's add a site attribute here. So inside the block quote element, I am writing CIT site, and let's just say HTTPS and example.com. So if I now save it and refresh the page, we can see there is no change here, but for browser and SEO, that is search engine optimization, it is useful. And also we don't have talked about the HTML element attributes. Don't worry, we will talk about the HTML attributes soon. Currently let's just focus on the formatting elements. So next we have the Q element, which defines a short quotation. Client browsers normally insert quotation marks around the quotation, or in simple words, double inverted commas around the content. So let's one more time go to our Visual Studio Code and insert a PR element here to insert a line break in the web page, And below this, let's add a new element and let's just say this is code. And if we now save it and open it in the web browser, so let's refresh the page here, and we can see our queue element here with inverted commas or quotation that just says this is code. After this, we have the abbreviation element that simply defines an abbreviation or a short form of something like HTML, CSS, ATM, etc. Also, marking abbreviations can give useful information to browsers, translation systems, and search engines. So let's go to our favorite Visual Studio Code and insert a new line break element here. So let's add a abbreviation tag here. So abbreviation, and let's just say HTML. And along with abbreviation tag, we can define the full form of the abbreviation by passing the full form to the title attribute. So let's define the HTML full form in our title attribute here. So let's just say hypertext markup language. So if I now save it and open the index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page, so we can see that our abbreviation element is here, and if we hover over it, we can see its full form saying hypertext markup language. Then we have the BDO element, that is kind of a fun tag which stands for bidirectional override, and what it does is that it overrides the current text direction. For example, let's open our Visual Studio Code here and insert a new BR element to insert a line break here, and below this let's add a BDO here, BDO element here, and let's just say Shubham compiled tag is amazing, and add a full stop here. So if we save and open our index.html file in the web browser, and if we refresh, we can see that there is no change in the text. But if we add a direction attribute to our video tag, let's just say direction, and if we write right to left, and if we save and refresh our web page again, we can see that the text has been reversed from right to left direction. So these were some HTML text formatting elements that can be used to format the text in a web page. Don't worry, you don't have to memorize all of it to use them. You can make a note out of these tags and practice them in your own website. Because the more you practice, the more you will be learning the practical implementation of HTML elements and when to use which tag. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment below your curious questions, and also don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and in the next video we will dive deeper into HTML element attributes. So see you there. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to learn about HTML element attributes, what they are, why they matter, and how to use them correctly. So if you have not watched my earlier video about HTML elements, I would recommend you to go through it first, then watch this video because it will give you the foundation of HTML elements before learning about the HTML element attributes. So let's start by asking what exactly is an HTML attribute. An HTML attribute simply provides extra information about an HTML element. All HTML elements can have attributes. Attributes are always specified in the start tag, and attributes usually come in name-value pairs like attribute name equals value inside quotes. For example, let's talk about the image element of HTML, which is used to embed an image in an HTML web page, and it have a source attribute which specifies the path to the image to be displayed. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code and define an image element with source attribute set as my picture, and I have my picture inside my HTML tutorial directory, so I can link my image element to that image via source attribute. And if I now save it and open the HTML index.html file in the web browser, we can see that our image is represented here. Now there are two ways to specify the URL in the source attribute. First is absolute URL, which links to an external image that is hosted on another website. For example, example.com images and mypicture.png. Then we have the relative URL, which links to an image that is hosted within the project or website. For example, I have specified the source attribute to my image that is hosted in the HTML tutorial directory. Here the URL does not include the domain name. If the URL begins without a slash, it will be relative to the current page or directory. For example, mypicture.png here. And if the URL begins with a slash, it will be relative to the domain. For example, let's create a new directory in our HTML tutorial directory by clicking here and naming this folder as images, and let's move our mypicture.png inside the images folder. So now we have to correctly link our mypicture.png image, that is images and forward slash mypicture.png. And if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that nothing has changed and the image is displayed correctly. Now the recommended way of defining a source attribute to the image element is that always use the relative URLs for image elements because they will not break if you change the domain. Then the image element should also contain the width and height attributes which specify the width and height of the image in pixels. So let's see an example of it also. So open our Visual Studio Code and add a width and height attributes here. So let's say width is 200 in pixels and let's also define the height as 200 pixels. So let's save it and open our index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page here. You can see that our width and height is applied to the image, and if we look at the page source, that is the source code, we can see that width and height is defined as 200 in pixels. Next we have the alt attribute. The required alt attribute for the image element specifies an alternate text for an image. If the image for some reason cannot be displayed, this can be due to slow connection or an error in the source attribute, or if the user uses a screen reader. So let's add a alt attribute on our image element here. So let's add alt and let's just say this is Shubham compiled tag logo. So we now save it and open the index.html file in our web browser and refresh the page. We can see that there is no change in the image, but behind the scenes the browser will display the alternate text if the image cannot be provided for some reason or loaded in the web browser. So let's take an example of this also. So let's remove the underscore between the my and picture here and let's save it and open in the web browser again and refresh the page. You can see that our alternate text is displayed here, that is this is Shubham compiled tag logo. So this is how the alt attribute of image element works. So let me correct my code here and introduce a underscore between my and picture here and refresh the page. We can see that our image is loaded correctly. So this was about the image HTML element, but the HTML element attributes are not limited to image tags. They can be defined on any HTML element such as our root HTML tag. We can define or should define the lang attribute inside the HTML tag to declare the language of the web page. So let's add a lang attribute on our HTML element here. So if we say lang equals en dash in in capital, this declares the language of the web page. This is meant to assist search engines and browsers. Also, country codes can be added to the language code in the lang attribute, like I did in for India. So the first two characters define the language of the HTML web page and the last two characters define the country. Then we have the title attribute which defines some extra information about an element. The value of the title attribute will be displayed as a tooltip when you mouse over the HTML element. So let's just add a heading tag inside our body tag and just above the image element. So let's say h1 and let's just say Shubham compiled tag, and let's just define the title attribute to the h1 element, and we can say something like YouTube channel name and save it. And if we open our index.html web page in the browser and refresh the page, we can see that our heading is printed here, and if we mouse over it, we can see that our tooltip has been displayed with text YouTube channel name. Now there are some conventions that you should follow while defining the attributes that are not required but are suggestions. Firstly, the attribute should be written in lowercase and value of attributes should be in quotes whether single or double. That is a totally developer preference. I myself use the double quotes while defining an attribute value. You can use whatever you want, there is no strict rule here. But in some situations, when the attribute value itself contains double quotes, it is necessary to use single quotes. For example, if we add quotes to our YouTube text here and change the double quotes from here to single quotes to the entire title attribute and save it and refresh our web page here, you can see that the tooltip now shows YouTube text in quotes here. Or we can reverse the quotes here. So let's add quotes to the entire title attribute and single quote to the YouTube here. So let's add single quote here to the YouTube text, and if we now save it and refresh our web page here, we can see that the tooltip now contains single quotes around the YouTube text. So this was all about the HTML element attributes and the image element. In the next video, we will talk about HTML links and the anchor tag. So this was all about the HTML element attributes and the image element. In the next video, we will talk about HTML links and the anchor tag. If this video helped you in understanding HTML element attributes, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. And also don't forget to follow me on the Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compile Tech channel, and today we are going to practically learn about HTML links and the anchored HTML element, which is one of the most important elements in HTML. Throughout this video you will know how to create links that connect web pages, open websites and even send emails. So let's start by asking a question: what is HTML link element? And the answer is simple, that HTML links are hyperlinks or links to jump to another document. In simple terms, HTML links are what make the web connected. When you click on a word, image or button and it takes you to another page, that's a link. In HTML, links are created using a special tag called the anchor tag or element. The HTML anchor element simply defines a hyperlink, and the syntax is as follows. So first we write less than symbol, then a in lowercase and then close the tag. And inside it we can provide some content such as Shubham compiled tag, and that's almost what we need to do to create a anchor tag. So if we open our index.html file in our web browser, we can see that we have some text here that says Shubham compile tag, but this is not a link, it's just a text. So now how to convert it into an actual link? So we can do that by adding an href attribute to our anchor tag, which is also the most important attribute of the anchor element, which indicates the link's destination. So if we write href here, so href equals, and let's add https slash forward slash youtube.com slash shub at the rate Shubham compiled tab. So if we now save it and open the page in our web browser, you can see that it now has changed its color to blue and it is underlined, and also the pointer has been changed to cursor. So if we click on this, you can see that this takes to our YouTube page. So by default, an unvisited link is underlined and blue in color. A visited link is underlined and purple in color, and an active link is underlined and red. Also, we can provide absolute and relative URL in the href attribute, like in the image element example I showed you in the previous video. Right now, we are using the absolute URL, that is the full website reference to another website, but we can also provide an relative URL by adding the slashes and patch to the other web page in the document. So for example, let's create a new file here by clicking this icon, not inside the images folder, or we can right click here and create a new file here called sample.html. And if we copy paste the content from index.html here and change some content here from HTML tutorial to like this is sample web page, and instead of anchor tag we can just say a paragraph here. This is sample HTML page So we now save and go to our index.html page here and create a new anchor element here with href attribute set as relative URL, and we can set the sample.html file here and just pass that sample page link. And if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that our sample page link is displayed, and if we click on this we are taken to the sample page here that is displayed on the title of the sample web page. Then we can also use an image to work as a link by just passing an image tag inside the anchor tag instead of plain text. And this not only just works for the image tag, the children tag can be any tag such as a table, button, list item, and etc. So let's see an example of image as a link. So if we go below here and type anchor tag again and href2, let's just copy the link from here to here, and instead of passing plain tags, let's actually pass an image tag here with source as images, and but we have our mypicture.png image here, and also give a alt attribute here which is required. Let's just say Shubham compiled tag logo, and let's just close the image tag here. And if we now save and go to our index.html web page here and refresh the page, we can see that the image is now clickable, and if we click on it, it will take us to our Shubham compiled tag YouTube channel page. Then we have the target attribute. By default, the linked page will be displayed in the current browser window. And to change this, we must specify another target for the link. The target attribute specifies where to open the linked document and can have the following values. First is the underscore self, which is default and opens the document in the same window or tab. Then we have underscore blank, which opens the document in a new window or tab. Then we have underscore parent, which opens the document in the parent frame. And lastly, we have underscore top, which opens the document in the full body of the window. Don't worry, you don't have to remember all of them. The most used ones are thus underscore self and an underscore blank. Rest you can make a note of it to reference it later. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, by default the target attribute is set to the underscore self, and if we want to change it, we can define the target attribute here and set the underscore self, which is default. But now let's just attach the underscore blank here, which opens the linked document in a new window or tab. So let's go to our index.html page here and refresh the page here. So if we refresh and click on the Shubham compiled tag first link here, we can see that it opens in a new browser window or tab, and our YouTube page is loaded here. Next, we have the link to an email address. We can use the special mail to colon syntax inside the anchor tag's href attribute to specify the anchor tag to create a link that opens the user's email program. To specify the anchor tag to create a link that opens the user's email program, basically to let them send a new email. So for example, let's go to our Visual Studio Code and let's actually define the width and height of image here. To let's minimize it a little bit. So let's give a width of 100 here and height of also 100, and create a new anchor tag here and set href to mail to colon, and let's just set an email here. Let's just say example@gmail.com and close the tag here, and let's just say send message. So send message, and if we now save and open our index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page, we can see that the send message link is there, and if we click on it, it will open our default email app to send an email to the email address which we provided in the href attribute. Then we can also use a button as a link, but we have to use some JavaScript code to achieve this. The JavaScript allows you to specify what happens at certain event, such as mouse click of a button. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and create a new button here, and let's just assign on click event to it, and let's just say document dot location. Don't worry, this is JavaScript code, not HTML. You don't have to remember this. I'm just using it to demonstrate you button as a link. So let's add equals and single quotes to define the address here. Let's just say https and forward slash youtube.com forward slash at the rate shubham compile tag, and let's just close the button tag here, and let's just say button with link, and let's just save it and open it in the browser here. So let's refresh our web page here, and we can see that we have a button with link, and if we click on this it will take us to our YouTube page. So this was an example of image as a link. Then we can also define the title attribute in the anchor tag, just like we discussed in the previous video about HTML element attributes. We can provide extra information about our hyperlink by passing the title attribute, and it will be shown as a tooltip to the user. So let's add a tooltip to our send message here, and let's write use this button to send me a message, and if we save it, so let's open our index.html file. I have mistakenly closed it and refresh the page, and if we hover over the send message button we can see that the tooltip has been shown with text use this button to send me a message. Next, we have something called the link bookmarks that allows us to jump to specific parts of a web page. Bookmarks can be useful if a web page is very long. When the bookmarked link is clicked, the page scrolls down or up to the bookmarked location. So what are the steps to create and use HTML link bookmarks? So let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and remove all of this. We don't need this anymore. So let's create a new heading here called h1, and let's define a new ID here to the h1 element called p1, and let's just close this tag and pass some content like heading, or let's just say paragraph 1, and below this let's add a paragraph tag here and define some content like this is a paragraph, and let's just copy it for some time to make it a paragraph. So let's just paste it sometimes, and let's just copy these h1 and paragraph tag here and paste them below to make the web page very long. And let's just change the id attribute of our heading tags here because every id should be unique. So let's give it a paragraph 2 id p2 and p3. Let's change the same for other ones to p4. This will be p5, and this will be p6, and this will be p7, and this will be p8, and also change the content here. So p8 and p7, then p6, and let me just do it quickly. So we have created our paragraphs here. Next we need to create our links here, that is bookmark links. So let's create an anchor tag here with href attribute set as hashtag and then defined by the headings id attribute. So let's add p1 here, and let's say para1, and let's just copy it for others also. So let's add few more here, and let's just change the values here. Para 2, para 3, para 4, 5, 6, 7, and let's add one more, that is 8, and let's change the IDs also here. So p1, p2, p3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if we now save, let's add up here. So if we now save and open the index.html in our browser here and refresh the page here, we can see that we have paragraphs here up to 8, and if we click on para 8 link here it will take us to the paragraph 8 here. So we have moved down a little bit by using link bookmarks, not by scrolling. Also if we click on our para 7 here, we will be taken down to the paragraph 7 here, which is where it is defined. So this is how the link bookmarks work. So let us quickly recap what we have done so far. We have learned how to create HTML links with the anchor tag. Then we talked about the href attribute that defines the link's destination. Next, the target attribute with two main values, that is the underscore self and underscore blank, where underscore self opens the link in the same client browser window or tab, and underscore blank opens the link in a new window or tab. We learned about how to use images, buttons, etc. HTML elements as link along with the title attribute. We learned about how to send email via anchor tag using mail to colon, and finally we learned about the link bookmarks. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. And also follow me on the Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Happy coding. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compile Tech channel. Today we are going to practically learn about the HTML list. Lists help us organize content neatly on a web page, just like bullet points or numbered steps in real life. So what are HTML lists? Well, HTML lists allow web developers to group a set of related items in lists. They make content easy to read and are commonly used for menus, instructions, and product features. In HTML, there are three main types of lists, namely unordered list, ordered list, and description list. And we will walk through all of them with you. So let us start by a first type of HTML list, that is unordered list. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code here, and an unordered list starts with UL tag, which stands for unordered list, and each item starts with li tag. So let's write li tag here, which stands for list item. The list items will be marked with bullets by default, and we can change it with the help of CSS. So let's write as this is first item, and let's just copy it for the second and third item here. So let's just say third, this is third item, and this is second item. So we now save it and open the index.html file in our web browser. We can see that our list items are printed here with bullet points for each item. And let's also add a subheading here to make this stand out. So let's add h2 heading here called unordered list, and if we now save it and refresh our web page here, you can see that our unordered list heading is here and list items are here. Now we can change the appearance of these bullet items here with the help of CSS. I'm showing you for just example. You don't have to remember them. So let's add a style here, and let's just say list style type as, let's just say, circle. And if we now save it and refresh our page, we can see that the bullet points have been replaced by the circles here. And we can also do like, instead of circle, let's just say square. And if we now save it and refresh our page, we can see that the squares are appearing. Then we have ordered list, which is defined by OL tag, which stands for ordered list. So let's define another subheading called ordered list and define ordered list by OL tag, then the list item by li, and let's just say this is item 1, and copy the same for second and third item, so 3 and 2. So if I now save it and go to our web browser here and refresh the page here, we can see that we have ordered list here and it is numerical with numbers starting from 1 to 3. Now the ordered list can be numerical or alphabetical, and an ordered list is used when order of items is important, like steps or ranking. One important thing about ordered list is that you can define a type attribute to it with values as type equals 1. So let's define it here. So type equals 1, and this will make list items numbered with numbers, and this is default. So if we save the file and go back to our index.html page and refresh, you can see that there is no change, but the ordered list is numbered by numbers. Then we can also say type equals capital A, and let's just copy the list here and paste it below this. And what it will do that it will make the list items numbered with uppercase letters. So if we now save it and go to our web page here and refresh the page here, we can see that the numbers are gone for both the list. I think I have mistake some here. Okay, there is need to be one here. And if we now refresh the page, the first order list is numbered with numbers and the second list is numbered with the letters, that is uppercase letters. And we can do the same for our lowercase letters. So if we copy this list here, so let's copy it and paste it below and pass the type as small a. And if we now save it and refresh the page, we can see that the list is numbered with lowercase letters. Also, we can number the list items with Roman numbers. For example, so if we paste it here and pass type equals capital I and save it and refresh here, we can see that the list is numbered with Roman numbers here, and same goes for the small I for lowercase Roman numbers. So let's just copy it here and paste it here and pass type equals to small I and let's just save it and refresh the page. We can see that the list is numbered with lowercase Roman numbers. Another thing we can do to our ordered list is that we can define a custom starting number to it. By default, an ordered list will start counting from 1, and if we want to start counting from a specified number, we can use the start attribute. So let's just say in our this ordered list where type equals number 1, and let's give a start attribute here with 5 as value. And if we now save it and refresh our index.html page here, we can see that the list is starting with the number 5 and ending with the 7. So that's the thing that we can do to our ordered list here. Next, we have the description list defined by DL tag. A description list is used to describe terms and their meanings. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's define another heading here as to subheading called description list. So description list and make the h lowercase also, so lowercase, and let's define a description list by dl tag which stands for description list, and then a dt tag which stands for description term to give our description list item a title. Let's just say coffee, actually double f here, and define its meaning with dd tag which stands for description, and let's just say black hot drink, and another description term tag, let's just say milk, and its meaning with dd here, and let's just say white cold drink. So if we now save and go to our index.file.html and refresh the page, we can see our description list here with description term as coffee and its description here, and same for the milk and its description here. So this was about the HTML list and types. One more thing we can do in HTML list is that we can have nested list, meaning a list inside a list. This is commonly used in menus and categories. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's just cut this order list from here and let's just paste it inside the list item of this ordered list and paste it here and format the code correctly. So if we now save the file and refresh our web page here, we can see that our lowercase letters list is inside the numbered ordered list which starts from 5 and end to 7. Also, until now, we have worked with HTML lists line by line, or I should say vertically. But HTML lists are not limited to vertical representation. We can also define horizontal lists with the help of CSS. So let's go to bottom of our web page here and define another heading here as to heading called horizontal list, and let's define an unordered list here with elements as, let's just say home, and let's just copy it for about, and let's just also say contact, and let's just also remove all of this because this is now not needed. So let's move our horizontal list to the top, and let's define a style tag here. Don't worry, this is CSS not HTML, so you don't have to remember anything here. So let's just say ul here and define list style type as none, So none, and also padding as 0 and margin also 0. And next we need to define our list item here, and let's just say float left. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that the list is represented horizontally, not vertically, with the help of CSS. So let us quickly recap our session here. We have learned about UL element, which creates unordered list, then OL element, which creates ordered list, and then DL element, which creates description list. Then we have talked about LI element, which stands for list items, which is simply used for creating list items. Then we talked about nested list and horizontal list. So I hope you now have better understanding about HTML list. Don't worry about memorizing them. You can simply just make notes and practice them frequently. Basically, the whole point of list is that lists help structure and organize content. So if this video helped you in understanding HTML lists, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Happy coding. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compiled Tech channel, and today we are going to practically learn about HTML tables, which are one of the most important concepts in HTML. Throughout this video, you will learn how to create a HTML table, what is a table row and column, table header, body and footer, what is call span and row span, etc. concepts. So let us start by asking a question that what is an HTML table? And the answer is that HTML table help us organize data such as student records, price list or timetables. They make information easier to read and understand. HTML tables allow web developers to arrange data into rows and columns. So how do you define a table in HTML? Well, a table in HTML consists of table cells inside rows and columns, and each table cell is defined by a TD start and end tag, which stands for table data. A table cell can contain all sorts of HTML elements such as tags, images, lists, links, etc. In simple words, we can define an HTML table by using the table tag, and inside it we used tr tag for defining table rows and td tag to define table data. So for example, let's create a students table. So first we write the table start and end tag here, then a tr tag, let's say tr tag for defining the table row, and then a td tag to define the table data. So here we will say students, or let's just say student name here, and then define another table data called country here, and below this let's also define one more table row for defining the values here, and inside it let's write our table data here. So let's write Shubham first, and then its country, let's say United States. Then we need to add another table row here, and let's define the table data as Alex, and TD for country also let's define country here Europe, and below this let's also define one more table row actually, and inside it let's also define another student name which is Vishal, and table data, another table data for our country, that is let's say India only. So if we now save it and open our index.html file in the web browser, we can see that our student name is here and country is here. Then we have our student name as Shubham, Alex and Vishal, and country as United States, Europe and India. Now you will say that sir, the content is visible and structured, but we can't really see the table. So for this we can add an attribute to our table called border. So let's add an attribute here and called border with the value of border thickness. Let us just say 1 here. And if we now save and refresh our index.html page, we can see that the HTML table does exist in our web page, and now the rows and columns are clearly outlined. Now you can have as many rows as you like in a table. Just make sure that the number of cells are the same in each row. Next, we have table headers. Sometimes you want your cells to be table header cells, and in those cases we use the TH tag instead of TD tag, which stands for table header. By default, the text in TH tags are bold and centered. So if we go to our table here and let's define TH instead of TD here, so which is stands for table header, and let's also do the same for country here. So if we now save and refresh our index.html web page here, we can see that the student name and country are in bold and in center also because of the TH tag, which stands for table header. Now we can not only have horizontal headers for our table, we can also have vertical headers for our HTML table. Let me show you an example of this also. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's create a new table here, and before that let's add a BR element here to introduce line breaks and to separate the our table and below table also. So table, and give it a border of 1 only, and then we need to write our table row, and then the first table header, let's just say student name. So student name, and below this let's write our table data also. So let's just say Shubham, and then another table data here, let's call it Alex, and another table data here, let's call it Vishal only. And below this let's add another table row here also and give it a title table header also. So let's add table header instead of table data, and let's add a country here, and let's define the country of Shubham first. So it will be United States, and then another table data of our Alex student here, and let's just define Europe, and then another table data here, and let's just say India. So if we now save and refresh our index.html5 in the browser, you can see that our headers are now placed vertically instead of horizontally. So we can also do that. I'm just showing it to you for better understanding, and yeah, it's cool. Now alongside headers, we also have something called table caption, which allows us to add a caption that serves as a heading for the entire table with the help of the caption tag. So for this, let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and add a table caption here. Just below the table here, let's write caption element, and inside it let's define the table caption here, and let's just say BCA students, and for next table let's add a caption here also and say MCA students. So if we now save and refresh our index.html file, you can see that we have a table caption here called BC students and another table with caption MCA students. Important thing to know that here is that the caption tag should be inserted immediately after the table tag. Otherwise, we can have a weird behavior with our table. So next we have some tags which is used to define the structure of the HTML table, such as the T head tag, which is used to define the table header. Then we have the T body tag to define the main content of the table, and lastly we have T foot tag to define the footer of the table. So to help visualize the table, let's create a new table in our index.html file here. Let's delete the entire code here and let's create a new table here with caption. Let's also define the caption here and write person table here, and then below this let's add our table head tag here. So inside this we can group our table headers here. So let's first write person1 and then just copy paste this for 2 times, and let's just say person2 and person3. Then we can define our table body here with a body tag which groups the table body content. So let's add a new table row here, and we also need to add a table row here, and we can cite and paste the content here. So let's paste it here, format the code, and let's just write the table data here called Shubham, and another table data with name Vishal, and another table data with name Alex. And let's also define the table footer here just for better visualization. So let's add t foot tag here, and inside it let's write a new table row, and let's add the ages of our person. So let's write age of Shubham, let's write 18. Then let's write another table data here, and let's define the age of Vishal, let's just say 23. And another table data for Alex age, let's just define 60 here. So if we now save and go to our index.html file here and refresh the page, we can see that our person table is now visible. And let's also add border to it. So let's border attribute, let's define it 1, the thickness, and let's just refresh the page again here. So we can see that we have no visual changes in our table here because the table header, table body and table footer elements are used to just structure the data in the code. Next we have HTML table call span and row span attributes, which are used to span over multiple rows or columns. So if we talk about the call span attribute, we can make a cell span over multiple columns by using the call span attribute and passing it a numerical value such as 2 or 3 to span over 2 or 3 number of columns. So for this, let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and delete the code here. So let's keep our table caption here, and below this let's add a new table row here and define table headers for our person tables. So first will be name and then the age here. So let's add also table header of age. And now what we can do here is that we can add an attribute to our name table header here called call span and pass it a value like 2 or 3 to span over 2 or 3 cells, or I should call it table cells. So let's add another table row here for adding data here. So let's add table data of actually table data. Let's add a name Shubham, then add another name here called Alex, and then define the age of both of them. So let's just say 23, and then define another table row here with table data such as, let's add Vishal, and then another name here called Deepak, and their age, let's also define their age as, let's just say 28. So if we now save it and go to our index.html file here, web page here, and refresh the page, you can see that our name cell is taking two columns because we have defined the call span attribute to take the two number of cells here. So don't worry if you are confused here because it takes times to learn HTML tables, and the more you practice the more you will learn about it and also make the notes of them for better learning here. And also we can do the same for our table row here. Also we can span over two table rows here. So let's actually see an example of this also. So we remove the call span from our table header here. So let's remove it from here, and instead of call span let's add a row span here with value of 2, and let's remove the table header of age from here and instead give it a value of Shubham as table data, and then a table data of another value, let's just say Vishal. And in the next row let's give it some more unique names. So let's add Dhruv here, so Dhruv, and in the next let's add Bob here, and in the next table row let's add a table heading here is instead of table data. So let's add table heading and call it age. So let's define the age of them. So what we can have is, let's add 21. So if we now save and reload our web page here, you can see that the name is taking two rows here and there is a bug here. So let's remove it that also. So let's remove the table data from here and let's save it, and now refresh the index.html page here, and we can see that name is taking two rows and we have our names here Shubham, Dhruv, Vishal, Bob, and their age 21 and 28. So to quickly recap, what we have done so far is we learned about what is an HTML table and how to create it in the web page. Then we learned about tr and td tag to create table row and table data respectively in the table. Then we learned about how to structure the table data with the help of t-head, t-body, and t-foot tag. Then we learned about how to give our HTML table a title using caption tag, inside the table tag. Then we learned about some attributes such as col span and row span, which span over number of columns or rows, and much more. So if this video helped you in understanding HTML tables, please like the video, subscribe to the Shubham Compiled Tech channel, comment your curious questions and also follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Happy coding. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are going to learn about HTML block elements and inline elements. Understanding these elements is very important for designing and structuring the web pages. So let's start the video by understanding some fundamental concepts. Every HTML element has a default display value depending on what type of element it is, and the two most common display values are block and inline. Let's first study about the block level elements. So a block level element always starts on a new line, and the client browsers automatically add some space or margin before and after the element. A block level element always takes up the full width available, meaning it stretches out to the left and right as far as the parent element width. Two commonly used block elements are the p element and the div element, which basically defines a paragraph in an HTML document and a division or a section in an HTML document respectively. So let us again see an example of our p element and div element here. So first we write the p element here, and inside it we write this is Shubham compiled tag channel, and I just copy this content few more times. So let's copy and paste them here to make it a paragraph. And below this, let's add a BR element here to introduce line breaks in the web page. So 2 should be enough. And below this, let's define a div tag here. And this will say this is a div element. So if we now save and open our index.html file here in the web browser, we can see that we have a paragraph here and a div element here. But what I am trying to say is that you will understand better when we add a border to them. So let's add a style tag in our head element here. So style, this is for just showing the block and inline elements. This is CSS, not the HTML here. So let's write a p here and define some properties here. We can add a border to it. So let's add a border of 1 pixel solid black, and do the same for our div tag here. So let's add a border also here and define the border as 1px solid black. And if we now save and refresh our index.html page here, you can see that the paragraph is taking up the full width of the browser window, and the div element is also taking the full width of the browser window because they are the block level elements. Now there are more block level elements that we have previously used in our videos, such as heading tags, table tag, list tags, and the list goes on. You can find more block level tags or elements on the internet. I would recommend it to you to go to a website like W3 Schools to view them at least for once and take a note of it. Now let's move on to the inline elements. An inline element does not start on a new line. An inline element only takes up as much width or space as necessary, and the most commonly used inline element is the span element. The span element is an inline container used to mark up a part of text or part of a document. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, and let's cover our div tags here with the span tag here. So if we say span and cover the div tags here, and if we add some style to our span tag here to mark it differently. So let's add a border here with 1px solid, let's say teal color here. And if we now save and go to our index.html file here and refresh the page, we can see that we have an inline element here called span, which does not start on a new line and does not take up the full width of the browser window. Now there are more inline elements just like the block level elements, such as the anchor tag, image tag, and so on. Make sure to check them out on the internet and make a note of them. and practice them later on your personal websites. Next, let's talk about some differences between the block level elements versus the inline elements. Block level elements starts on a new line, inline elements don't. Block level elements take full width, inline elements takes only required width. And also one element you will see more often when you look at the source code of a website. So let's go to actually blogger.com and viewing his source code by pressing the Ctrl plus U key or right clicking and selecting the view page source is the div element. So you can see that there are a lot of div elements here in the websites, another one here, then another one here, and so on. So let's talk about this element some more. The div element is often used as a container for other HTML elements. The div element is often used to group sections of a web page together. We can have many div containers on the same page and nested div elements also. Now one more thing to remember is that we can change how the elements behave with the help of CSS. We can make a span tag to behave like an block level tag and vice versa for something like div tag to behave like an inline tag. This is not actually a disadvantage but is useful when designing web page layouts. So if this video helped you understand block level and inline elements, please like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. Also don't forget to follow me on the Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Happy coding! Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compile Tech channel. In today's video, we are going to practically learn about the HTML head tag and why it is so important for every web page. We have talked a bit about the head tag in our HTML and document video already, but in this video we will dive deeper into the HTML head element or tag. So let's start with the fundamentals of head tag. The head tag is container for metadata and is placed between the HTML tag and the body tag. The metadata is information about the web page that is not currently visible to users but is very important for client browsers and search engines. Metadata typically define the document title, character set, styles, scripts, and other meta information. Now let's start integrating the title tag in our head element. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's define a title to our web page here. So give it a title element here and inside it let's write HTML tutorial, and the title element defines the title of the document. The title must be text only and it is shown in the client browser's title bar or in the page tab name. The title element is required in HTML documents. Without it, it will just display the file name as web page title. Also, the content of a page title is very important for search engine optimization, that is SEO. The page title is used by search engine algorithms to decide the order when listing pages in the search results. So try to make the title as accurate and meaningful as possible. So if we now save and open our web page in the browser, here we can see that our title is displayed in the browser tab name as title. Next we have the style element in the head element. The style element is used to define style information for a single HTML page. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and add a style tag here inside the header element and we write style and inside it we write body to give our web page a background color. So let's give it a background color property here and let's just say teal and let's just save it and open in the web browser here. So we can see that if we refresh our page, we can see that our background color has been changed with the help of style element, which is inside the head element. Next, we have the link element inside the head element. The link element defines the relationship between the current document and an external resource. The link element is most often used to link to external style sheet and also for adding a favicon icon to the website. A favicon is basically a small icon shown in the browser tab along with the title. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's remove the style tag from here and create a new link here to our external style sheet that we need to create. So let's go to new file here and create a style .css file here, and inside it let us define some styles here. So let's define a style for our body element here, and we just need to change the background color to, let's just say, teal, and text color to as such as white. So if we now save and link our external style.css file to our index.html file, we can use the link element here. So we write link, then rel equals, let's just say, style sheet, and then we need to pass the href here and define the path to our style.css here. It is currently in the root directory, so that's why we don't need to add any slashes here, and we can just self close this element. So if we now save, and let's add a heading also in our body here to see the changes. So let's add a heading 1 here, and let's just say Shubham compiled tag here. And if we now save and open the index.html file in the web browser, so let's open it and refresh the page, we can see that our style has been applied from the external style sheet. The background color is teal and the text color is white. Next, we can also add an favicon icon to our web page here. Currently it is showing a globe here, but we can actually define our own here. For this we need to again create a link tag here. So link, and then we need to pass the rel as icon, and then a type here which just says image forward slash x dash icon, and then href which is part to the fav icon here. So I have icons, then my favicon.ico, and we can self close it also. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that our favicon icon is visible here. So this was about the link element. Then we have meta element in the head element, which is used to specify the character set, page description, keywords, author of the document, and viewport settings. The metadata will not be displayed on the page but is used by client browsers, that is how to display or reload page by search engines using keywords and other web services. We can define several meta tags with different attributes. For example, let's go to our Visual Studio Code, and inside head element let's add a meta element here, and let's define its character set attribute to UTF-8. Now this is used to define character set used by the web page and ensures proper display of text and special characters. Now we can also self close this. Now the next meta information that we inside to our web page is called keywords. So name attributes then equals keywords as value. So keywords, and then define, it's actually keywords not keyword, and then we can define the content that includes keywords for searching this page. So let's add HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now this is helpful for search engines to find our website using the keywords as HTML, CSS, JavaScript that we have provided. Next meta information we can add is called a description. So let's add meta here, and let's self close it, then add a name of type description and define the description of our web page here. So let's write this is built by Shubham, compiled tag. And the next meta information we can give our web page is called the author. So name equals, let's say, author. So author, and pass in the content as Shubham Singh. That will define the author of our web page here. And then the last meta information we can define is called viewport. So let's give it a name of viewport here. Viewport, and content as width equals device dash width, comma, initial scale set as 1.0, and we can also self close this. Now this viewport metadata helps your website look good on all devices, not only just for desktops or laptops but also for mobile devices. So if we now save and go to our index.html file again here and refresh the page, we can see that there is no visual changes to our web page here. But if we go to page source here, we can see that our metadata is defined here, such as link to our external style sheet, then a favicon icon, then the character set of UTF-8, then the keywords which is used by search engines to find your website, and then a description, author, and viewport also. Next, we have the script tag, which is used to define client-side JavaScript. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's define a script tag here, which defines the client-side JavaScript code, and let's write alert and pass in some content such as hello world and add a semicolon at the end of it and save it and load it in the web browser. We can see that there is an alert that is saying hello world before loading the web page. So if we click on OK, it will load our web page correctly. Now we can also define the script tag in body tag of our document to let the page load first and then load the script file for faster load times, but may result in bugs if not handled correctly. So if we move our script element from the head element and paste it inside the body element at the bottom, and if we now save and refresh our page, we can see that our background color of web page has been changed, and if we click on OK, we can see that our web page has been loaded successfully. Next, we have the base element in the head element, which is used to specify the base URL or target for all relative URLs in a web page. So we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's add the base element here. Let's add base and add a href here. Let's just say images, and let's just self close this tag here and remove the script element from here because we don't need it anymore, and then define an image element here with the source which is relative to the current base element. So if we now say my picture.png and let's give it a width of 200 and height of also 200, and if we now close the image element and save it and open the index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page, we can see that our image element has been loaded with the help of our base element, which defines the base URL or relative URLs. Now the base element must have either an href or a target attribute present or both, and there can only be a single base element in a document. So to recap what we have done so far, firstly we have learned about what is head element and how to use it, then the title element which is required and it defines the title of the document or the web page, then the style element which is most often used to define style information for a single document, then the link element which is most often used to link external style sheets and to add a favicon icon to our web page. Then we talked about the meta element, which is typically used to specify the character set, page description, keywords, author of the document, and viewport settings. Then the script element, which is used to define client-side JavaScript. And lastly, the base element, which specifies the base URL or target for all relative URLs in a web page. So if this video helped you understand the HTML head element or tag, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your curious questions. And also follow me on the Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Happy coding. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compile Tech channel, and today we are going to practically learn about HTML semantic elements and why they are important for modern web development. So let's start by asking a simple question: what are semantic elements? And the answer is semantic elements are elements with meaning. That's right, a semantic element clearly describes its meaning to both the client browser and the developer also. Examples of non-semantic elements include div tag, span tag, which tells nothing about its content, but on the other hand, examples of semantic elements include the image tag, table tag, article tag, and so on, which clearly defines its content. So why to use HTML semantic elements at all? Because firstly, they improve code readability. Secondly, they help with SEO, that is search engine optimization. And lastly, they make websites more accessible for screen readers. Many websites contain HTML code like div tag with ID attribute, value as nav, then another div tag with class attribute and value as header and footer to indicate navigation, header and footer respectively. You can still make a website like that only, but generally it is not recommended. Instead, in HTML, there are several semantic elements that can be used to define different parts of a web page, such as nav tag, header tag, footer tag, main tag, and the section tag, and so on. So let's start learning them one by one. Firstly, we have the header tag and footer tag. The header element represents a container for introductory content or a set of navigation links. A header element typically contains one or more heading elements, logo or icon, authorship information, and so on. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's add a new header here. So inside body, let's create a new header element here, and inside it let's create a heading 1 for our website title. So let's give our website a title here and let's call it my website. And below this, let's introduce a line break here by br element, actually two line breaks for better visualization. And below this, let's define some links here with anchor tag. So anchor and href as, let's just say, hashtag, which just don't go to any page and stays on the current page when the link is clicked. And let's name our link here, let's just say home, and let's just copy it for our contact page. So contact, and another one for our about page. So if we now save and open our index.html file in the web browser, we can see that our website title is here called my website, and below this we have two line breaks, and after that we have home link, contact link and about link. And if we click on it, it will not go anywhere but stay on the current page because we have added href as hashtag, so that allows us to not go to any page and stay on the current page. Now it is important to note that you can have several header elements in one HTML document. However, header cannot be placed within a footer element, address element or another header element. Then we have the footer element. The footer element defines a footer for a document or section. A footer element typically contains authorship information, copyright information, contact information, back to top links and related documents. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and define a new footer tag here, let's just say footer here, and inside it let's place a paragraph here, and let's just say copyright 2026 and Shubham Singh and all rights reserved. So we now save and open our web page in the web browser here and refresh the page. We can see that our footer element is represented here with a paragraph saying copyright 2026, Shubham saying all rights reserved. And also we can have several footer elements in one document like the header element. Next, we have the section element. The section element defines a section in a document, or in simple words, a section is thematic grouping of content, typically with a heading. So let's add a section element between our header and footer element like we do in a real website. So let's add a section element here, and inside it let's define a heading here with h2 element, and let's just say as TC or SCT for Shubham compile tag, and below this let's add a paragraph here which just says Shubham compiled tag channel is good for learning programming and working on real world projects. So if we now save and open our index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page, we can see that our section element represented here with heading saying SCT, which stands for Shubham compile tag, and a paragraph which says Shubham compile tag channel is good for learning programming and working on real world projects. Now we can have many section tags inside our website. There is no limit and you can add as many sections as you want. Just make sure they are unique because otherwise it will be useless. So let's add another section element here with heading as www and which stands for World Wide Web. So let's just say World Wide Web is amazing. So if we now save and refresh our index.html page, we can see that we have now two sections. One is for SCT and another one is for www World Wide Web. Now examples of where a section element can be used are in chapters, introduction, news items, contact information and etc. A web page would normally be split into sections for introduction, content and contact information. Next we have the article element. The article element specifies independent self-contained content. An article should make sense on its own and it should be possible to distribute it independently from the rest of the website. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write a new article tag here. So article, and inside it let's write our heading here with h2. Let's just say Google Chrome, and below this let's write a paragraph also about Google Chrome. Let's just say Google Chrome is amazing web browser. And let's add another article element here just like our section tag, and let's just say with heading h2, let's just say Microsoft Edge, and below this let's also write a paragraph. Let's just say Microsoft Edge is awesome browser. So we now save and go to our index.html file in the web browser and refresh the page. Here we can see that our article is now shown in the web page with title as Google Chrome and paragraph as Google Chrome is amazing web browser, and another article with heading Microsoft Edge and content as Microsoft Edge is awesome browser. And examples of where the article element can be used are forum post, blog post, user comments, product cards, and newspaper articles, and so on. Now you might be confused that, sir, what is the difference between the section element and the article element? And the answer is that the article element specifies independent self-contained content, and on the other hand the section element defines a section in a document. Also, you will find HTML web pages on the internet with section elements containing article elements and article elements containing section elements. So yes, you can match them if you need to, and there's no problem with that. So let's also see an example of it. So let's write an article tag here with heading as, let's just say heading 2 with text as blog post and with content as a section tag with, let's give a heading also, let's give a heading 3 here and let's just say blog post 1, and below this let's write a paragraph here saying this is blog post 1, and let's just copy it few times here. So copy and paste. Then let's copy the whole section here and let's write another section here inside the article tag, and let's name it to blog post 2, and let's just copy, or I should say remove and replace the blog post content here. Let's just say this is blog post 2, and let's just copy it a few times to make it a paragraph. And if we save it and open it in the browser and refresh the page, here we can see that our blog post article is here with the heading blog post, and inside it we have two sections called blog post 1 with paragraph this content here, and another section with blog post 2 as heading and the paragraph content here. So next we have the nav element. The nav element simply defines a set of navigation links. And if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, let's remove all of this from here and keep the header and footer here. So let's remove all of it, and let's only keep our header here, and inside the header let's define a new nav element here which contains all of the links in the header. So let's move it a little bit to format the code and paste the nav element closing tag here. And if we now save and refresh our index.html page here, you can see that our links are shown here grouped together in the code with the nav elements. And if we click on any one of them, it will not take to us another document or external resource because we have defined the href attribute as hashtag. One important thing to note here is that not all links of a document should be inside a nav element. The nav element is intended for only major blocks of navigation links. Next, we have the aside element. The aside element defines some content aside from the content it is placed in, like a sidebar. The side content should be indirectly related to surrounding content. And if we see an example of it, let's remove or let's actually add a section here, and inside it let's write some heading here. Let's just say SCT, and let's define a paragraph also. Let's just say Shubham compiled tech channel is amazing. And below our section element here, let's add a side element here with a heading of h3, and let's just say information. And below this let's write a paragraph also that just says good for learning programming and building real world projects. So if we now save and open our web page in the web browser and refresh the web page here, we can see that our section element is here with title as SCT. Then we have our content here of section element, and below this we have our aside element with heading as information and content as good for learning programming and building real world projects. Next, we have the figure and fig caption elements. The figure element specifies self-contained content like illustrations, diagrams, photos, code listing, and etc. And the figure element defines a caption for a figure element. The fig caption element can be placed as the first or as the last child of figure element, while the image element defines the actual image or illustration. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, and let's remove this content from here, and let's create a new section here, and below this let's write a new heading here with h2. Let's just say sct logo, and below this let's define an image tag here with source as, let's just say, images forward slash my picture.png, and let's define a width of 200 and height of also 200, and let's help close it. And then what we need to do is we need to actually cover our image element with a figure element here. Let's write figure, and let's cut it from here and paste the end element here, and let's also write the fig caption here inside the figure element, and let's just say Shubham compiled tag logo. And if we now save it and refresh our web page here, we can see that our Shubham compiled tag caption is represented here, and below this we have our Shubham compiled tag logo here. Then we can also have our fake caption below our image also, so let's actually do that also. And if we paste our quick caption below our image here, and let's save and refresh our web page here, we can see that our quick caption is now represented at the bottom of our image. So if this video helped you understand HTML semantic elements, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your curious questions. And also follow me on the Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compiled Tech channel, and in today's video we will talk about HTML character entities and why they are important when writing HTML code. Also, this video might be a short video because it is a very short concept but still have practical learning importance. So let's start by asking the question, what are HTML character entities? And the answer is that in HTML sub characters are reserved, which means they have special meanings such as smaller than and greater than symbol. If we use them directly, the browser may misunderstand our code. So to display these characters properly, we use HTML character entities. And before actually going to code them, let's just talk about why do we need character entities. We need character entities to display reserved HTML characters, to show special symbols, and to avoid code errors. Now the entity names or entity numbers can be used to display reserved HTML characters. So for example, let's go to our Visual Studio Code here. And the HTML character entities usually start with the ampersand and end with a semicolon. And for example, to display a less than sign, we write ampersand, then LT, then a semicolon. If we now save and open our index.html file in the web browser, we can see that our less than symbol is represented here. So if we zoom here, we can see that our less than symbol is represented here. So let's actually zoom back and let's go to Visual Studio Code here, and let's add a BR element here to introduce a line break. Let's actually add two of them, and what we can do that we can actually add an entity number to represent a less than symbol. So if you write ampersand, then hashtag, then write 60 and a semicolon. If we now save and refresh our web page here, you can see that we have two less than symbols here, one represented by the character entities and one represented by the character entity number. And the most common used HTML entity is the non-breaking space. So if we add an ampersand here, so let's add ampersand and write NBSP then semicolon. This will introduce a non-breaking space, and a non-breaking space is a space that will not break into a new line. If you write 10 spaces in your text, the browser will remove 9 of them. So to add real spaces to your text, we use this character entity to add spaces. So for example, let's add a space here and let's add a little bit more, and if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that the spaces are not actually represented here. And to solve this problem, we use the NBSP non-breaking space. So let's actually delete the spaces from here, and let's just copy this entity here and paste it a few times. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that now there are actual spaces between the two less than symbols with the help of ampersand NBSP non-breaking space. Next, here is a list of some common HTML character entities. Like I said earlier in my videos, you don't have to remember all of it. Instead, make a note of it and practice them in your HTML projects to gain and learn better. Here we have the non-breaking space, then less than, greater than, ampersand, and so on. So if this video helped you in learning HTML character entities, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment your curious questions. And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in another video. Happy coding! Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compiled Tech channel, and in today's video we are going to practically learn about HTML forms, form elements and different input types which are all related to each other. Now forms are very important because they allow users to interact with websites by entering data. So let's start by asking a simple question: what exactly is an HTML form? And the answer is that an HTML form is used to collect user input data, and the user input data is most often sent to a server for processing. Examples of HTML forms include login forms, registration forms, contact forms, and etc. Now, how exactly do we create an HTML form? We create the HTML form by using the form element that is used to create an HTML form for user input. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write our form element here. The form element is a container for different types of input elements such as text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, and so on. We will talk about them in a moment. Now talking about HTML form elements, firstly we have the label element. So let's write our label element here. Now if we write our label element here, we can actually define a label for an input element. So let's write full name, and the label element defines a label for many form elements and is useful for screen readers users also, because the screen reader will read out the label when the user focuses on the input element, such as a text field. The label element also helps users who have difficulty clicking on a very small regions such as radio buttons or checkboxes, because when the user clicks the text within the label element, it toggles the radio button or checkbox. Also, we have a for attribute for our label that should be equal to the ID attribute of the input element to bind them together. So for example, let's write a input type text here. So input type equals text and close it. And if we give a id attribute to our input tag here, let's just say name here, and inside the label for attribute let's write the name here. So let's save it and open it in the web browser. We can see that our label and input type text is visible now. If we click on our label here, we can see that we are focusing on the input type text here. That's what the label for attribute is used for, which binds a label and input element together. Next, we have the input element, which is the most used form element. An input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attribute. For example, if we go to a Visual Studio Code, we have a type attribute of text here that displays a single line text input field. But if we change it to radio here and save it and open the file in the web browser here, and refresh the page, we can see that it displays a radio button for selecting one of many choices. Currently there are only one choices, but we can have multiple choices to select any one of them. Then also we have an input type equals to submit. So let's write submit here and let's just save it and refresh our web page here. We can see that it displays a submit button for submitting the form. And there are many more input types in the HTML here. Then we have the select and option HTML form elements. The select element defines a drop-down list and the option element defines an option that can be selected respectively. They are also linked to each other. So we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write a PR element here to introduce a line break. Let's actually add two of them. And below this, let's actually write a new label here for our select and option element. So if we write label and let's add a for here also. And let's just write a country inside the for attribute. And if we now close it and let's write country here also in capital, and below this let's actually write our select element here and let's actually give it a id of country that we have defined in the label for attribute. And inside our select element we write our option element here to define the option, selecting many options for the select element. So we write, let's actually write select country here, country, and the first option will be displayed as the default for selecting the values, and we define a value attribute to our option element to define its value. Let's actually add empty space here for no value, and let's write another option element here and let's provide it a value of India, and let's write India in capital here also, or I should say in title case. Then we can write another option and value as, let's just say US, and write United States here, and let's write one more option here with value of Australia and call it Australia, and let's save it and open it in the web browser here. So if we go to our file here and refresh the page, we can see that our country label is here and our select and option HTML form elements are also here, which represents a list of selections. So first we have defined the select country as default value, which has no value in the HTML form. Then we have India, United States and Australia. So we can select any of the countries here. Let's just select India here. Now by default the first item in the drop down list is selected, and to define a pre-selected option we add the attribute selected to the option. So if we write selected here to United States, let's just say selected, and if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that the United States is selected by default. So we can also do that. Then we also have a size attribute to specify the number of visible values. So if we say size here and let's write inside 2 here, and if we save and refresh our web page here, we can see that now the size has been changed from 1 to 2 here, and we can select any one of them. Also we can use the multiple attribute to allow the user to select more than one value. So if we say here multiple, and if we now save and refresh our page here, now we can select multiple values by holding down the control key and clicking the mouse button one here. So this was about the select and option element. Then next we have the text area element, which defines a multi-line text input or a text area. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write another label for our text area element here. So let's write label, and below this let's write a message text here, and let's just say for attribute here, and let's also write a message here, and below this let's write our text area element here, and let's just pass the id as message to bind the label and the text area, and inside it we don't write anything. And let's actually add a line break here also by adding the br element, and let's actually add two of them for better visualization. And if we now save and open the file in the web browser, we can see that let's refresh here. We can see that our text area is represented here and our label is also represented here. Also we have the rows and calls attribute to specify the visible number of lines in a text area and the visible width of a text area respectively. So if we write here rows, so rows equals, let's write 5, and calls as, let's write 15. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, you can see that our height and width of text area is now changed. So that's what we can do with rows and columns in the text area form element. We can also provide a placeholder text to display to the user using the placeholder attribute. So let's write placeholder here, and let's just say enter your message here, and let's actually add three dots here, and let's save it and refresh our web page here. We can see that we have a placeholder text here that just says enter your message here. So that's what we can do with our text area here. Next we have the button element that simply defines a button. So let's go to our Visual Studio Code here, and let's add a line break here by adding br element two times, and below this let's write a button here, and let's close it, and inside it let's write something like click me, and let's just save it and open it in the web browser. So if we refresh our page, we can see that our button is displayed here that just says click me, and if we click on it, nothing will happen because we have not provided any JavaScript code to it. Also we have the type attribute in the button element that changes the behavior of the button, such as a simple button which do something like such as to display an alert using JavaScript code, or a submit button that just submits the HTML form. So if we write some JavaScript code here, so let's write inside our head. So let's write a script tag here, and let's write a function here that just say greet here. So let's actually write in small letters and greet here, and inside it let's write our alert function here that just say hello world, and let's add a semicolon here, and let's save it. And inside button element we should first write the type attribute, which is a button, but we can also have the type equals submit, which just submits the form here, but for now let's just keep it to the button here. And let's also add a on click event here, so we can define on click, and inside it we can write our greet function here inside on click. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, and if we now click on it, we can see that our alert is shown here with text as hello world. So this was an example of button and type attribute of button element. Next we have the field set and legend elements, which are also linked to each other. The field set element is used to group related data in a form, and the legend element on the other hand defines a caption for the field set element. So for example, let's go to our Visual Studio Code here, and if we cover our labels and form elements with field set here, so let's just cut the closing tag from here to bottom of the button element here, and let's just format the code correctly here, and let's just add a legend element here to define the caption for our user form. So let's actually write user data here. So we now save it and open the file in our web browser here. So let's refresh the page, so we can see that our labels and form elements are now inside a box here that is represented by the field set and the legend as caption as user data. So this was an example of field set and legend element. Next we have the HTML input types that we have said earlier to talk in depth later. So let's start. The HTML provides different input types for different kinds of data. Firstly, we have the input type text that simply defines a single line text input field in the web page. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, and let's just remove all of it from here, and let's write legend as input types, and below this let's write our input element here, and let's just provide a type of text here, and we can then self close it. And if we now save it and refresh our web page here, we can now see that we have input types as field set legend and in single line text input field. Also we can have a placeholder attribute just like the text area element attribute. We can write our placeholder text here also. So let's just write enter your name. So if we now save it and refresh our web page here, we can see that we now have a placeholder text for our input field. And one more thing to note here is that if we don't specify the type attribute on the input field, the default is considered as text. So make sure to make a note of it also. Next we have the input type as password, which simply defines a password field, and the characters in password field are marks that is shown as asterisks or circles. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, and let's write a label for it for better visualization. So let's write a label here called password and define a for attribute here. Let's just say password here also, and below this let's write our input element with type as password, and also write a placeholder attribute here that just say enter your password, and let's just also self close this, and also add a label for our name text field here. So let's also write label for attribute as name, and let's just close it and provide an id to our name field here. Let's just say name, and now if we save it and open the file in our web browser here and refresh the page, you can see that our password field is here but no label for our name here. We actually need to write a name here. So let's write name. If we now save it and refresh our page here, you can see that our name text field is here, which is input type text, and then a password field which is as input type text and which is marked with asterisks or circles. Let's also add a break line here below the input text field. So let's write a line break here, and if we now save it and refresh, the form is now better. Then we have the input type submit. So let's actually write here input type equals submit, and let's actually self close it. Now it defines a button for submitting form data to a form handler, and the form handler is typically a server page with a script for processing input data. The form handler is specified in the form's action attribute. So in the form element here, we can actually define our action here, which will be a server function that is used to process the user input input data. But in our current example, we don't need to do that because we are just learning the HTML here. So if we now save it and open the web page in our browser and refresh the page, we can now see that our submit button is here by using the input type equals submit attribute. Next we have the input type radio, which defines a radio button. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's just define a new label here and let's define a for attribute for it and let's call it mail and let's write mail also. And after the input type password, let's also add an br element to introduce a line break here and let's just copy the label for female also. So let's write female and let's provide the female attribute also for label for attribute. So let's write female and above the male label let's write gender here. So gender, and below the female label here let's write our input element here with type equals radio and let's add it a id also for let's say male and we can self close it. Let's also copy it for the female. So let's write female here and it will be also type radio. So we now save and open the file in our web browser here and refresh the page. We can see that our gender is here with male and female radio buttons and labels, and if we click on any of radio buttons we can see that it is a little bit buggy. Now why our both of radio buttons is selected instead of selecting for only one? Because we not have provided any name to our input fields. There should be only one unique name to both of our input fields. So let's write name equals, let's just say gender, and let's also define name for our female also. Let's also just say gender and let's also add a br element below our female input radio button. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that now we can select only one of the two choices, that is male or female, and we can also select the radio button by clicking on the labels here. So this was an example of radio buttons. Then we have input type checkbox, which defines a checkbox. Checkboxes lets a user select 0 or more options of a limited number of choice. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here, so let's write few checkboxes here. So first of all, let's give our title here of checkboxes. So let's just call it vehicles, and below this let's write a new label for our checkbox. Let's just say car, and inside it let's write I have a car, and below this let's write the input element of type checkbox and let's also provide it a name and let's call it vehicle 1. So let's write vehicle 1 and let's also self close it and also provide it an id attribute. So let's just say car and let's just copy it for the another checkbox and let's just say I have a, let's say bike, and let's just change it from car to bike also and do the same for here, and let's just say vehicle 2 as name attribute. Then also let's just copy it for the another third checkbox and let's just say I have a boat, and let's also change the attributes also. So boat, and let's also change the name to vehicle 3. So if we now save it and open the file in our browser here and refresh the page, you can see that our vehicles checkboxes is now represented in the web page. So we can now select any of them for our user form to submit the data, such as I have a boat, I have a bike, I have a car, or I have none of them, or I have all of them. So this was an example of checkboxes input type. Next, we have the input type color, which is used for input fields that should contain a color. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write a PR element here, and just above the submit button also let's add a PR here, and inside it let's write our new label here and let's just provide the for attribute as color, and we can close it and write inside it color, and below this let's write input type as color, and we can self close it. So if we now save it and open the file in the web browser here and refresh the page, we can now see that we can actually select a color as a form data. So we can now select any color of our choice for the user data and form. So this was an example of input type color attribute. Next, we have the input type date, which is used for input fields that should contain a date. So we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's just define a new label here and define a for attribute with name as date, and let's also write the id attribute of color because we not have provided it. So let's actually write color here and let's write the date inside the label here, and below the label let's also write input type equals date, and let's also provide the id as date, and we can self close it. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can now see that we can actually select a date from the web browser to be used in the user form. So we can select any date from here and any year or month or day. Feel free to choose any one of the date. Then we have the input type email, which is used for input fields that should contain an email address, and also applies some basic email address validation such as it must contain an @ symbol. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write a new label here, an attribute also for, let's write email, and let's write email as title case, then input actually it's label not lab. Let's actually correct my spelling here, and below this let's write our input type equals email, and we can also provide a placeholder to it just like the text field, and let's write enter your email address, and we can self close it and also add a PR element to introduce a line break here. Let's do the same for our date also. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that now we can provide an email here, and if we write an invalid email, let's just type abcgmail.com and we click on submit, we can see that there is a basic validation that says please include an symbol in the email address. So if we now add a symbol inside and let's click on submit, we can see that our form is submitted and our form is resetted. So this was an example of input type email. Next we have the input type file, which defines a file select field and a browse button for selecting and uploading the file. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here again and let's add a new label here and also add a PR element before it, and let's just define a new label here and let's just say select logo, and define a for attribute to our label, let's just also call it logo, and below it let's just define input type equals file, and then we can self close it and also define the id attribute of our input type file, and let's just also call it logo and also add the id attribute. Oh my god, I keep forgetting the id attribute of the input elements. Let's add email here, and if we now save it and open our file in the web browser and refresh the page, we can now see that our input type file is now visible and we can actually select a file from it. So let's just select my picture here, so it displays the title of our file here, and the file is now selected and ready to be processed to the server here by clicking the submit button. And there are many more input types in the HTML. You can find them online, and don't worry, you don't have to remember them all. Just take notes of them and practice them in your HTML web projects. This is the best way of learning. So if this video helped you in learning and understanding the HTML forms, form elements and input types, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. And also follow me on the Instagram, link is in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shubham Compile Tech channel, and today we are going to practically learn about HTML media elements. These elements allow us to add video, audio, etc. media to our web pages. So let's start by understanding what are HTML multimedia elements. Multimedia elements are used to display media content such as images, audio, and videos on a website or web page. They make web pages more interactive and engaging. So let's first understand the audio element of HTML, which is used to play an audio file on a web page. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's write our first audio element with the audio text here. And inside it we can write audio element not supported. So this text will be visible to those browsers where audio element is not supported. Then we also have a controls attribute on the audio element which displays the audio controls such as play, pause and volume. So let's just say controls here, and that's all what we need to do to have the controls here. Then we have the source element inside the audio element. So if we write source here, which is used to define the source of the media file using the source attribute, and also the type attribute to define the type of audio file such as .ogg audio file or .mp3 audio file. So if we write source here, so if we source and let's just provide the path to audios, and let's add our raw audio.mp3 file here. Then we also need to define a type attribute here. Let's just say audio forward slash mpeg. So we now close this source tag and save it and open the file in our web browser, and we can see that our audio element is now represented here in the web page with raw file correctly loaded because it is showing 1 second here. So if we bring down the volume a little bit and press the play button and see the raw sound is audible. Then we have autoplay and muted attributes on the audio element, which automatically plays the audio file on the web page load and mute the audio file respectively. One thing to note that the Chromium browsers do not allow autoplay in most cases. However, muted autoplay is always allowed. So if we write autoplay inside our audio element, so let's just say autoplay and save the file and open the file in the browser here, and let's refresh the page. We can see that the audio file is not played automatically because Chromium browsers do not allow autoplay automatically. But if we add the muted attribute here, so let's just say muted, and if we now save and refresh the page, we can see that our audio file is played and the sound is muted. Next, we have the video element of HTML, which is used to show video on a web page. So if we go to our Visual Studio Code here and let's actually write audio here, and below audio element closing tag, let's also write a PR tag here to introduce line breaks. Let's actually add two of them, and below this let's write our tags here video, not tag but only video tags here, and below it let's write our video element here, and inside it let's write video element is not supported, and inside video element let's write our source element here. So source, and let's provide it a source attribute here with videos and line video, and let's also define the type attribute here. Let's just say video forward slash mp4, and let's self close it. So we will now save and refresh our web page here. So let's refresh our web page here. We can see that our line video is represented here, but we do not see any controls here because we need to add a controls attribute to our video element here. So if we say controls here, and if we now save and refresh our web page here, we can see that our controls is now visible, and if we play the file, we can see that our file is played normally without any errors. We also need to define the width and height attributes of the video element because otherwise it will flicker the web page when loading the video. So it is best practice to add width and height to our video element here. So let's just say 450 width, and let's also say 450 height. So if we now save and refresh our web page here, you can see that our width and height is applied to the video element. Also, the attributes such as autoplay and muted also applied to video element. So this was about the HTML multimedia elements where we learned about the audio and video elements. If this video helped you in understanding the concepts, please give a like to the video, subscribe to the channel and comment your curious questions. And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching. See you in another video. Bye. Hey everyone, and congratulations, you have successfully made it to here. From learning basic HTML structure to working with tags, links, lists, tables, forms, semantic elements, multimedia, and so much more. You have taken a huge step towards becoming a great web developer. Remember, HTML is the foundation of web development. The stronger your foundation is, the easier it will be to learn CSS, JavaScript, and advanced frameworks. Now, don't stop here. Practice regularly, build small projects, and experiment with your own ideas, such as personal profile page, a contact form, or a simple website using HTML only. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. If this series of HTML helped you in any way, please take a moment to like this video. It really supports the channel. Share this series playlist with your friends who want to start web development, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming tutorials on JavaScript, React, and real world projects. Also, it's your turn to ask questions to me now. You can comment your curious questions in the comment section of any video, like how was your learning experience, which HTML topic did you enjoy the most, and what should we learn next. And if you want to connect with me, here are my social media links also mentioned in the description. So feel free to follow me on Instagram, check out my GitHub account, and also my website. So thank you so much for watching, learning, and supporting this channel. Your dedication and consistency truly matter. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.